Okay, next presentation will be by Roxana Savin at the University of Lleida in Spain. Nitrogen fertilizing rain-fed wheat and barley to intensify cereal production in the Mediterranean basin.
Well, thank you for the opportunity of presenting the work we've done with some other people here that are mentioned in the slide. The large variability in yields that occurs frequently under Mediterranean environments determines conservative strategies by the farmers. In dryland agriculture systems of Mediterranean regions, farmers usually avoid fertilizing with nitrogen based on the assumption that the responsive would be minor or negative to water stress. This is based on the assumption widely rooted on the Liebig law of the minimum. But although this concept is sound, has been challenged several times. For instance, the nice work published by Pasura some time ago shows and suggests that the steadily rose on wheat yields in southeastern Australia, where it's clearly water limited condition, there was a steadily rose on wheat yields after when farmers started to fertilize heavily with nitrogen. Also, some work performed in northeastern Spain, Mariano Cosani shows that we can find some yield responses to nitrogen application in rain-fed wheat. And we also found with some simulation models that we can reduce the yield gap of wheat rain-fed in the same area when we can find around 100 and 150 kilograms of N per hectare in the soil. However, it is unclear whether the interpretation of causes of productivity trends, the response in simulation on particular experiments would actually represent what can be expected in a wide range of Mediterranean conditions. So in this work, we tested whether it may be possible to propose nitrogen fertilization as a tool to raise wheat and barley yields in rain-fed system in Mediterranean basin. Also, the reluctance to fertilize rain-fed cereals is even stronger for barley than wheat. It is alleged that barley responds to fertilization less or erratically, or more erratically than wheat, and this assumption is based without having enough field experiments comparing side by side these two crops. So we included this aspect also in the work I will present today. So in the context of an European project, we provide such wide testing, and we end up having 16 rain-fed field experiments during four consecutive years in 4 countries that are the ones with the red crosses here: northeast of Spain, South Italy, Morocco, and Jordan. And in these experiments, we have different nitrogen fertilization doses from 0 to 160 kilograms of N per hectare. Rainfall during the growing season varies from the lowest, that was 90, to the highest, that was 450 millimeters of water during the growing season. And we use barley and durum wheat genotypes, which were the best adapted genotypes in each of the 4 locations I mentioned before. All in all, we have 289 yield data points. And the first thing I want to show you in the limited amount of time we have is the range of yield for the unfertilized rain-fed crops that you can see here in this graph. It varies from less than 1 ton to more than, well, 5.5 tons per hectare. But what I want to point out here is that the median value is less than 2 tons per hectare, although we can have some years with good rain during the growing season and achieve a higher yield. And for the average of the fertilized rain-fed crops, we have a much larger variability that you can see in the graph. But the point I want to make here is that the increase in yield response to fertilization can be noticed in all 4 quartiles of yield and are shown here by the black arrows. So the median yield increase ranges from 2 to 3 tons per hectare. In this graph, you can see the grain yield values for the doses that maximize the response of the use of the nitrogen versus the yield for the control and fertilize. And here, what we can see is that there was no clear differences between the 2 species. At any yielding condition, you can see that the different symbols are at random all along the curve. There were exceptional cases where there was a negative effect of applying nitrogen, and these are the points that are below the 1-1 line. There was a general trend to increase the response to applying nitrogen when increase the unfertilized control yields. This is because there are better years with more water. And there was no crossover between the regression line and the 1-1 line, meaning that even in low yielding conditions, we have a positive response to nitrogen. So summarizing this, if we see the residuals of every symbol, every point here to the 1-1 line, we can see that these residuals for each each interval of 1 ton per hectare of the unfertilized controls, we can see that the response can be noticed all around the environments we explored in this work, that the response increased noticeably when we have more than 3 tons per hectare of yield, I mean the less water limited environment. But in the more limited water environment with less than 2.5 tons per hectare, we still have a positive and significant response. Even though we are looking at 4 locations that are characterized by terminal drought stress, we can see that yield is directly related and strongly related with the number of grains per square meter, as you can see in this figure, for both species and for all the nitrogen treatments. But in the inset figure, we can see here the special response of yield and grain number to nitrogen application, and we can see that we still have a very good relationship between these 2 variables. So to summarize the most or main message of this work, we can say that although water availability is the most severe stress yields in the reduction yields in this region, we prove that the aversion to fertilize is unjustified. This aversion produces yield penalties even in the most driest environments, and this penalty is around 1 ton per hectare when no fertilized. High enough, it's a very rare case in this region. We proven empirically the inadequacy of the Liebig's law, and that the responses to fertilization were mediated by the number of grains per square meter, empirically confirming that grain growth is not so limited even in these stressful conditions. And challenging a strong belief in the region, we prove that under low yielding conditions, there are no consistent advantages of barley over wheat, and that barley does respond to fertilization quite similarly to wheat. So I'll leave you with some pictures of some of the experiments we performed, and thank you for your time.